Hello everyone and welcome back to the sideboard here at the Los Angeles Invitational. We've obviously almost gotten to the end of the Swiss rounds at least, and we're deep in Legacy. But the standard rounds are over, which means that we have our best performing archetypes from the actual 8 rounds of standard that the Invitational had. We went ahead and collected this data, obviously removing the Legacy performances. This is just how these players did in standard. However, they were obviously paired based on their records. That said, one of our 8-0s had clearly one of the toughest runs, as he is currently the top seed in the entire tournament. He just lost to Nick Spagnuolo on camera. Jonathan Job went 8-0 in standard. He was playing Naya mid-range, not splashing an additional color as so many players have been lately. He just kept it pretty stock, turned to Angel of Serenity and Borderland Ranger, while a lot of other players are splashing removal instead. That worked out well for him. And the other undefeated standard player, Lauren Nolan, actually had kind of a similar concept. His deck is very different, however. He was a 4-color control deck, using a lot of the spells that Bant has, but turning at the same time to these same creatures to actually solidify his matchup against all of the mid-range decks. So plenty of Angel of Serenity in there. I think he also had some Centaur healers. I've got the list right here to double check. No, sorry, Augur of Bolas, Angel of Serenity, and then Restoration Angel and Thragtusk alongside all that Bant support. So Angel of Serenity, big player this weekend, at least for these invitational combatants. Only one player had a single loss and a draw. That was Matt Nass, whom has been quietly hovering near the top of the standings most of the weekend. He's playing Blue-White Flash. I know Adam Prozac was also on Blue-White, no red, so yet another player who decided not to splash when a lot of other players are choosing to. The unique thing about Matt's deck, he was running Geist of St. Trapped and also had access to Feeling of Dread, so he could really punish these aggressive decks by getting a threat on the board and clocking them quickly while just staying right a little bit ahead of them with his tempo plays. I think that's really the strength of Geist of St. Trapped in this format. It's very hard to get him through consistently. You just need to take your damage where you can find it and move on. We had 3 players on 6-2. Matt Hoey, the first one. He was playing Blue-White Red mid-range, another Geist of St. Traft based archetype, very similar in concept. He has access to Thunder My Hokite and some burn spells. He, I know, ran a smattering of 1-ofs to make his Snapcaster Mages and Augur of Bolas. A little more, his Snapcaster Mages a little more unpredictable. He wasn't running Augur of Bolas. But he had Counterflux, which has been big game this weekend and amongst a lot of players, and he trimmed down on his Azorius Charms to make room for more removal, including Syncopate, a counter many players that started cutting. Nick Spagnuolo, I tried to get Nick into the booth. I wanted to do a live sideboard with his deck, talk about his standard archetype, but Nick, playing for top 8, wanted to stay in the zone. You guys just saw him on camera. He looked pretty in the zone there as he took down that match. So happy for Nick. He should be good to draw into top 8 next round. And we didn't get that sideboard with him, but his archetype was Esper Control. A lot of Planeswalkers, a few Singletons. Among the spicy ones, he had 3 Terminus in the main deck. He had Sorin, he had Curse of Death's Hold. He had access to Lingering Souls. He had all these Sphinx's Revelations. And there was one other card in his deck, Feeling of Dread. So that's 2 archetypes with Feeling of Dread, posting strong finishes in standard. I know I played against the archetype myself in Vegas, or the card in Vegas, and Feeling of Dread is definitely one of the cards up and coming in standard. It's really good when these archetypes are just trying to get into the later turns where they can cast their awesome spell, as opposed to actually needing to trade profitably in the interim. So, worth noting. And our last one, Leon Kornacki playing Black-Green Zombies. Black-Green Zombies, an archetype that did reasonably well a few weeks ago in another major tournament, and here performed very strongly for Leon. You saw him on camera at least once, maybe a couple times. If you can hear, we've already got the Invitational wrapping up going into the ultimate round, and Black-Green Zombies was our last archetype on 6-2, and that covers it all. You can find those deck lists all online. They're on our main coverage page in an article. So if you want to see exactly what their card choices were, you can just go ahead and check that out. I do have an update from the sales booth regarding the Standard Open earlier today. I talked about Evil Twin selling well yesterday. Sold well again today, peculiarly enough. We still haven't really seen it showing up at any of the top tables, but it's one of those cards that's catching on. The other cards that caught on were all mono-red styled. Mark of Mutiny, Archwing Dragon synergy with Cavern of Souls and Thunder My Hokite, particularly worth noting against Supreme Verdict decks. Crippling Blight, which is another aggressive holdover, and Cremate typically goes in the black-red zombie decks. Purify the Grave and Cremate were our 2 graveyard hate sellers for the day, so I think that indicates we had black-red zombies and more of the blue-white-red decks kind of coming into their own there. Possibly some blue-black, but I find that unlikely. I would hold to blue-white-red and the zombie players looking for some hate. And Cremate seems like the best one for zombies. I especially like that it's never a dead card, even if they're sideboarding out some of their graveyard stuff to try and become more of a mid-range deck. Beyond that, our big seller for Planeswalkers, Big Garrett Primal Hunter. You just saw Nick Spagnuolo casting him in Legacy which I'd wager none of you expected to see going into the weekend. I know I didn't expect to see it, and I knew what Nick was playing in advance, so that worked out better for him than expected. And I think that Garrett Primal Hunter is making his way in Standard, although I'm going to go ahead and say that the Legacy, probably a bit of an outlier. So we're going to go ahead and throw to commercial as we wrap up for the last round of Legacy. Ruben and I will be doing feature matches, and you guys will have a top 8 very soon. So
SCG Live is brought to you by StarCityGames.com, and in case you haven't heard, you can now